entirely flawed and does not tell people what they want to know, which is what is the quality of care that their children are being given on a day-to-day basis. It's an extraordinarily difficult thing to manage that and to do that, but the HSE has made absolutely no attempt to do that properly. So all we're doing is we're finding out about car parking.
Actually, going back to the point that you made about those
payment and wages,
about those reports. I mean, obviously, if your child fell or if your child was sick or whatever, you want to hear the report. What I'm criticising about those reports that we got every day was that they were standard. It was nappies, tick. You know, it was literally just box ticking, which is what goes on in a lot of creches. Box ticking. Have you put your child to bed? Has the child slept for 2 hours? What did the child get up? Was the nappy changed afterwards? You know, what I would like when my children were in the creche, what I looked for was that those working in the creche had a sense of compassion. Now, I'm not asking them to love your child. I mean, there was an article, I think it was Brenda Power today, saying that, you know, childcare workers, and as you said, they are very underpaid. You know, you don't expect them to love your child, but you do expect them to give a certain amount of compassion.
But some people like children more than others.
Which is why,
you know,
which is why this, you know, similarly to the
some people hate children.
Absolutely, which is why in the
the program clearly did.
But in the primary school system, you know, which follows straight from this pre-early school years, you know, the free early education thing, in the primary school system, you know, if you go into teaching in the primary school system, it is generally expected that you have a professional ethic, that you like children. I mean, it used to be called a vocation to become a teacher. Now, the people working in the childcare system are dealing with children who are younger and who are even more, you know, their development, their development is even stronger. You know, and the whole pay scale is so skewed, because in third level, you know, you get the highest pay scale when obviously, I mean, people are very well educated to teach at third level. Yeah. But going back to, as Connor said, €9 an hour, I mean, you get more for flipping burgers than you would for the childcare
you want to come in and then
I just want to come in and say that one of the things I think we should highlight, you were talking about no government funding.
Yes.
There is no government funding to the Bord Gáis Theatre, and there is government funding to the Gate. And the difference is the Gate is a not-for-profit organisation. Now, I applaud RTE, and I'm delighted Conor mentioned it because they have got a lot of kicking and it was a great programme. I would have liked to have seen a programme which went into other creches. I would have liked to have seen a programme which went into the not-for-profit creche, the one where it is vocational. And as Marion said, and she's absolutely right, I'm 62-year-old, I'm a grumpy old man, I'm impatient. If I was getting paid $9.50 an hour, I don't think I'd be great. I don't think I'd manage it. And the point is that we have to get that back to being vocational. Now, the three of them, Giraffe, Lynx, Little Harvard, they're chains. There are people calling the tune that are running companies that are in the Isle of Man.
How many have you, Regina?
I have 4 centres.
Yeah.
I manage them myself, and I think this is part of the thing. I'm there.
You're there.
Around
and you've
my
got
centres.
awards and all that.
And we've been inspected
But
outside of ourselves,
22.
outside. I know they have, and I would say that we're back to this thing. I know how difficult it is to find a manager for my centres, and when I do find them, I have to train them. I have to mentor them. I have to be alongside them continuously. They're not there. And what has happened is that you have people running centres.
Exactly. If you were to pay, if creches were to pay their staff more, they would be able to attract better staff.
But now, hold on. Just to no maid of on. Costs of childcare in Ireland. Parents are paying up to €15,000 a year
easily
to have a child.
Easily. I mean,
now that's after tax money. So you have to earn 30,000.
I had 2 children in a creche. Aileen had 4. I had 2 children in a creche, and all told, I think the fees were something around about €2,400 every single month after tax. Now you've to earn £5,000 almost to cover the cost of that. Yeah. So I don't know if a lack of funding is the issue, because the creches are charging the money. The other key thing is a continuity of care. I was very lucky in the creche that my 2 little girls went to, in that the same staff were employed by the creche on the day my oldest girl went in as on the day that my youngest girl left. So I had a great sense of security from that, because one of the things you get with a lot of the big chain creches is you get constantly changing staff, and it becomes very hard then for parents to build up a relationship with the creche staff and for the creche staff to build up a relationship with the children.
Yeah, because it's a tough job. I mean, everybody that's had kids knows that they're not angels all the time, do you know? And, you know, you can be tested, I would think, and that you would need, sorry, I know you've been trying to rephrase that.
No, I just wanted to highlight another aspect. Some of the papers today were criticising government policy from 2 aspects. One, in that in the boom years that they were encouraging women into the labour force, and then consequently then could say that pressures were needed if the women were working every day in full-time jobs. And then the other side was with the house prices and with the boom that
Yeah.
people now can't afford, we'll say not to work, that for a couple. But there was an interesting piece over the weekend, and David Coleman wrote about it, and his point basically was, that the government should be looking at supporting parents rather than, we'll say, the childcare industry. And he was making the point that no one is going to give as much care, we'll say, as a parent or as better care, and that initially the early childhood education payment was initially given to the family, but then it was given to childcare providers.
Right.
So why can't it go back? Because I was raised, we'll say, at home, as my brothers were. We had
The other
best
thing that I
care.
just want to say is that 70% of children are minded by childminders. It's only like 19% were looked after in a crash. Now, they're not immediately up-to-date figures, but they were, I think, by survey in 2007. You've been trying to get in for ages, and then I want to go to the phone, yeah?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that the idea that child creche workers are paid so little is definitely part of the problem. But the other side of the problem then is that if you pay them more, the cost of the creche will clearly have to go up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the problem with that is that it's like I'm at home, but I have an 8-month-old daughter, and we're in a position that, okay, let's get the child into a creche.
Yeah.
If there was an emergency, if the creche costs, say, 20% more, that'll affect that decision. Also, clearly the RTE program is leading to a lot of discussions at home
Of course.
about whether a creche is even the right place anymore. So all these things that look like good solutions will end up either killing the creche industry because it comes too expensive, or it'll end up, like, without changing it, we'll have to increase taxes because we'll have to pay more into creches.
Yeah.
So there's no easy solution to this, but I think what's happening clearly isn't working, and that's what the next thing is.
Well, you see, maybe it is for some people, because you say that yours are working.
Yes, they are. We would work. We had to put a lot of strategies in place. I had to get mentoring in a lot of areas that I wouldn't have been really good at. I'm
How
really
did
good
you
at
start?
childcare. I started in my own home with 10 children, right? My mother had a Nina before that. And I obviously, if it's in my blood, I love childcare. I'm absolutely passionate about what I do. And I always said that if I couldn't be the best at what I do, I'd stop doing it.
Right.
So, I mean, it was there, it grew from the IDA wanted childcare in their facilities, and I had this design in my head, and I designed them, and mind you, that was one of the most harrowing interviews I ever came through, was that interview with the IDA for me to...
In what way?
In that, how they asked me millions of questions around the quality of care, everything, as I was really put through an interview for that.
Yeah.
I put all my staff through a fairly horrendous interview, and it's quite often when you come out you can see that the training isn't there in them. It just isn't, and like we have to look at that and look at investment in that area.
But isn't it about training and vocation? Because you said you love it.
I do love
And that's
it.
the thing, it must be vocational, because there are certain, as you say, Marion, there are certain people who love being around children.
Yes.
But when you get into the big chains, and when you get in and they can't do it, and it's 9.50, they'll take in people who don't even care about children, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
I just-
that's it, vocational is important.
I think it's an interesting thing. Carl O'Brien in the Irish Times has a great piece on the front of the weekend supplement this weekend about the creche issue and the childcare issue, and he makes the point that Maureen Gaffney once was speaking to a senior politician during the boom years, and she was questioning why more money hadn't been invested into childcare, or subsidies given to parents, or tax breaks given to parents who were putting their children to childcare, and she was told that the stay-at-home lobby would have been up in arms had that happened.
Well, they would too.
And that is a real problem, because during the boom years, when we had the money to invest in proper childcare facilities for all of the people who have no choice but to put their children into creches, that opportunity was missed, and as a result we're now in a position where the childcare facilities are woefully, not individual centres, but they're just woefully under supported. Like
Can I just say that all my children have now emerged from the creche situation, and actually they will all talk about the place where they went to creche in a very happy way.
Yeah,
You know, they
mine too,
really
mine too.
enjoyed it. So, you know, I think it's terrible to castigate all creches with the same person.
If you look at the statistics for last year, we're having more babies than we've ever had before.
That's right.
So there's going to be a huge supply.
Which
into
somebody
creches.
Rob was writing about the other day as very good for the economy.